There's a kind of fatigue that no amount of rest can touch. You know the one. Your body is still, but your mind refuses to sit down. It paces like a restless ghost, circling thoughts that never lead anywhere new. You're not necessarily unhappy. You're functioning, showing up, checking the boxes. But underneath it all, there's a quiet hum of something off, like you're carrying a burden that doesn't have a name, like you're pulling weight no one else can see. And if someone were to ask how you're doing, you'd probably just say, "I'm good." Not because it's true, but because it's the most convenient way to avoid unpacking the complicated, knotted truth. It feels safer, easier to offer a sanitized version of your reality than risk being too much or too honest. But here's what gets missed in all the pretending. Feeling stuck doesn't always come from what's around you. Sometimes it comes from the outdated narratives we keep repeating about who we think we're supposed to be. There's this hidden checklist we all seem to carry, a list we never agreed to write, yet somehow still try to follow. Be successful, but not so successful you intimidate people. Be kind, but don't let them take advantage of you. Be vulnerable, but not too emotional. It's like playing a game where the rules shift halfway through, and no one told you. And it's exhausting, because you're not just living your life, you're performing in it. Not in a fake way, but in a self-protective way. You learn how to blend in, to make peace where there isn't any, to meet expectations that leave you feeling hollow. You become so good at adapting that you forget what you actually need. But here's the truth. Freedom doesn't arrive when everything outside you finally gets easy. It begins when you stop playing a part in a life that doesn't even feel like your own. The version of you that shows up just to meet obligations? That's not freedom. That's a beautifully decorated prison cell. And you deserve more. Most of us were never shown how to stop. We know how to keep going, how to power through pain, how to stay in uncomfortable situations because we think quitting means failure. We praise perseverance without asking what it's costing us. We stay in jobs, friendships, roles that drain us because walking away feels like breaking some invisible contract we never actually signed. But here's the thing. Letting go isn't the same as giving up. Letting go is clarity. It's the quiet act of asking yourself, does this still belong in my life? And then having the courage to listen. Usually, what you're carrying isn't one giant thing. It's dozens of tiny cuts. It's the grudge you never voiced, the boundary you didn't hold, the dreams you shelved under someday. It's that inner voice that sounds a lot like someone else's disappointment. And slowly, those small things become the noise you mistake for truth. You get so used to adapting that you forget to check in. You shrink to fit rooms that never made space for you. You downplay your needs to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. You wear emotional disguises so well that even you start believing them. And maybe people admire you for your composure, your calm, your ability to handle it all. Meanwhile, you're halfway checked out of your own life. You're not burned out because you've done too little. You're burned out because you've done too much of what doesn't honor who you truly are. So what happens when you stop? Stopping isn't giving up. It's choosing. It's peeling off the automatic responses and saying, wait, is this even mine? It's recognizing that maybe you've been running a race you didn't even want to win. Some people live their whole lives in that loop, checking off society's milestones, chasing a sense of achievement that never quite fills the silence at night. But not you. You wouldn't be here, listening, if some part of you wasn't ready for something more. You're not here to be admired from afar. You want to actually live, to breathe without bracing, to show up as yourself without needing a script. But here's the catch. Once you stop doing what never felt real to begin with, it gets quiet. And that silence? It can be scary. Because in the quiet, old beliefs rise to the surface. You're selfish for choosing rest. You're lazy for slowing down. You'll disappoint people. But those voices? They're just echoes, remnants of a version of life you no longer belong to. Freedom doesn't come with confetti. It comes in stillness, when your body softens for the first time in years, when you say no and don't explain, when the world doesn't fall apart, and you realize it never depended on you holding it together. It comes when being alone stops feeling like failure, when peace is a priority, not a luxury, when you stop filtering your worth through the eyes of others. You'll know you're close when you stop apologizing for existing, when you wake up and don't feel like you have to earn the right to be here. And that's the magic. Once you stop performing, you realize you never had to. Freedom hides in plain sight, not in routines or books or endless striving. It shows up as relief. The deep breath you didn't know you were holding finally let go. You stop needing the perfect comeback for conversations long gone. You stop bracing for the worst. You stop equating struggle with meaning. Because suffering is not a badge of honor. We live in a world that glorifies being busy. We use exhaustion as a status symbol. No one boasts about peace. But maybe that's what we should be chasing. And if you're being honest with yourself, maybe you're scared of what life looks like without the chaos. Who are you without the pressure, without the grind, without the constant doing? Here's the truth. You are not the sum of how much you can endure. Your value isn't measured in stress. The absence of struggle isn't emptiness, it's clarity. It's the sound of your own voice finally being heard. Isn't it exhausting trying to be everything for everyone but yourself? Isn't it time to put down the emotional Tetris pieces and let yourself just be? Because real freedom isn't loud. It arrives gently. When you no longer need to defend your choices, when you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. You see, most of the heaviness you're dragging around, it isn't even yours, it's inherited. Passed down expectations, societal noise, other people's fears dressed up as advice. And so you walk through life like an emotional thrift store, draped in outdated beliefs and borrowed anxieties. And then you wonder why it doesn't fit. It's subtle. Someone once called you too emotional, and now you bury your feelings. Someone hinted you were aiming too high, and now you clip your own wings. But your life isn't meant to be a mosaic of everyone else's fears. You weren't born to carry their wounds. At some point, you have to ask, why am I still lugging this around? We think our armor keeps us safe, but it also keeps us stuck. Protects us from pain, sure, but also from love, growth, connection. Wearing armor too long, you forget what it's like to feel the sun on your skin. You forget how to move freely, trust fully, breathe deeply. You weren't built to brace for impact every day. You were made to feel it all, the fear, the joy, the beauty of being fully, messily human. And yes, that's terrifying, especially vulnerability. But it's also the only place where real connection lives, real breakthroughs, real peace. You've probably noticed, people who seem the most free aren't the ones hiding behind walls. They're the ones who had the courage to take them down. Because that's the paradox. Freedom feels scary, but it's the only place where you finally meet yourself. And when you do, you realize the safety net you've been clinging to was never real. Control is an illusion, plans change, expectations disappoint, but you remain. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Maybe strength isn't in holding tight. Maybe it's in loosening your grip, letting the pieces fall where they may, trusting that you will rise, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. Freedom doesn't require more, it requires less proving, less pretending, less apologizing. It asks you to subtract everything that isn't truly yours until what's left is honest, whole, and deeply alive. Because the moment you stop chasing what was never meant for you is the moment everything real starts to flow your way. And if you're still here, listening, let me just say it. You're closer than you think.